Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, thumma amma ba'd. To proceed. So, Shaykh rahimahullah, al-Imam al-Allama ibn Qudamah, died 620 after Hijrah. We're going over Kitab al-Umdah by Imam ibn Qudamah rahimahullah ta'ala. And then when you go over one of the books of the Mashayikh, it is important to mention the name of the Mashayikh. It is important to pray for him when you mention his name, because they have lived their entire lives working extremely hard to get to this level, to be able to put together a book that will be read after them by thousands and hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And the least gratefulness you should show to the Mashayikh is basically to say Arhamuhullah or Rahimahullah when you read their book. Certainly you could go and pray 2 rak'ahs and give their or pray 2 rak'ahs and recite and give the thawab of recitation to the Shaykh and make dua for the Shaykh afterwards, and you could do a lot of work. You could give charity on behalf of the Shaykh and so on. Someone like Imam ibn Qudamah would be deserving of all of this. We've been reading his book. All of this is the legacy of those mashayikh that we benefit from, that guides us in correcting our ibadat, or correcting this aspect, this legal aspect of the ibadah, which, as we said before, is important for the perfection of that aspect. And then you breathe the soul into a good body, into a healthy body. You breathe the soul of your intention into a healthy body. So they're taking care of both aspects. Shaykh al-Harawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, in the previous session was taking care of the spirit that you'll breathe into the body. And Imam ibn Qudamah is basically telling you how to keep that body healthy, how to keep your salah healthy, so that you have a good body with all limbs and all senses, all faculties. And when you breathe the soul into the body, then you will have a beautiful creation. Creation, it's still a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you're basically the doer. So Imam ibn Qudamah rahimahullah ta'ala, in this chapter about Salat al-Tatawwu, or supererogatory prayers, nawafil, sunan prayers, we finished half of the chapter, and we said that today we will finish the other half and go into al-awqat al-manhiya anha, or the times when prayer is prohibited. We may not be able to cover all of this. We may just finish this second half of Salat al-Tatawwu, or the Sunnah prayers, to get a chance to talk about some other prayers that the Imam ibn Qudamah did not mention in this book, and to talk about the comparative the views of the different mazahib as well. He said, وَالثَّانِي al-Kusuf, lunar or solar eclipse prayer. The second, وَالثَّانِي صَلَاةُ الْكُسُوف. The second is al-Kusuf, lunar or solar eclipse. Okay. What is a thani? What is he talking about? He divided the tatawwu prayers, as we said last time, into 5 different types. The first type is the rawatib, are the routine, emphasize the routine prayers, the 10 or 12 that you perform every day before and after the salawat. The 2 before Fajr, the 2 or 4 before Dhuhr, the 2 after Dhuhr, the 2 after Maghrib, the 2 after Isha. Those are the rawatib, the sunan, the muakkada, emphasized, stressed, routine prayers. That's the first type. The second type is witr. He gave it that distinction because of the importance of witr. He kept it in a category by itself, witr. And then the third type is the rest of the mutlaq, which is praying at night, during the day. You want to pray a sunnah prayer in pairs during the night or during the day. You should pray them in pairs, twos, 2, 2, 2, 2. That is the position of the madhab, that they are prayed in twos, in pairs. So Then, that's the third type. And then he said the fourth category is prayers that are offered in jama'ah. Prayers, the nawafil prayers that are offered in jama'ah. In the madhab, nawafil prayers are best offered at home. But there are certain nawafil prayers, there is a difference between offered in the masjid and offered, in jama'ah. So offered in the masjid does not mean necessarily offered in jama'ah, but these nawafil prayers are offered in the masjid in jama'ah. So he had a category for them alone. The three prayers that are offered in jama'ah that are considered nawafil or that are considered recommended are these prayers. Taraweeh was the first one that we discussed the last time, so that's why we were starting from the second, because the first was the Taraweeh prayers. Three prayers: Taraweeh, Kusuf, and Istisqa. Taraweeh, Kusuf, Eclipse prayer, Istisqa prayer for rain. Those are the three prayers that are recommended and offered in Jama'ah. What about Salat al-Eid? Why did he not mention Salat al-Eid here? Because Salat al-Eid in the Hanbali madhab is fard kifaya. It's a collective obligation. So he will mention it later. Not here. But when it comes to the recommended prayers that are offered in Jama'ah, in the Hanbali Madhab, they are those three prayers: the Salat al-Kusuf, Salat al-Taraweeh, Salat al-Kusuf, and Salat al-Istisqa. We're done with Salat al-Taraweeh last time. Today we'll start with Salat al-Kusuf. The second is al-Kusuf, lunar or solar eclipse. The Shafi'is and Hanbalis, they treat Kusuf and Khusuf pretty much the same way. Kusuf and Khusuf, they treat them the same way. In the Hanbali madhab, Kusuf and Khusuf are used interchangeably between the lunar and the solar eclipse. In the Hanafi madhab, you will find them using Khusuf for the Qamar, for the lunar eclipse, and Kusuf for the Shams, for the solar eclipse. And they make some distinctions between them. For the time being, in the Hanbali madhab, Kusuf and Khusuf are the same thing. They're used interchangeably, and they refer to eclipse, whether it is the lunar eclipse or the solar eclipse, any eclipse. So al-Kusuf, lunar or solar eclipse prayer. So if the sun, فَإِذَا كَسَفَتِ الشَّمْسَ أَوْ الْقَمَرَ فَزِعَ النَّاسُ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. So if the sun or the moon eclipse, people must anxiously rush to the prayer. فَزِعَ النَّاسِ, anxiously rush to the prayer. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, فَافْزَعُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَإِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُمَا فَافْزَعُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ إِنَّ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ آيَاتَانِ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ. The sun and the moon are two of the signs of Allah. لَا يَخْسِفَانِ لِمَوْتِ أَحَدٍ وَلَا حَيَاتِهِ. They do not eclipse for the death or the life of anyone, or the birth of anyone. Which is when Ibrahim alayhi salam, his son, died, and the people thought that the sun eclipsed because of the death of Ibrahim, because it eclipsed on the same day that Ibrahim died. The Prophet ﷺ taught them that these signs of Allah, they don't really change these universal laws of Allah, the laws that He instilled in this universe that we have to treat as universal laws. We have to, and if we understand this, then we will be able to excel, as Muslims. We will be able to be better if we understand that there are certain laws. Your role is to discover them, to deal with them through discovery and exploration. Anyway, in the Shams al-Qamar ayatani min ayatillah, two of the signs of Allah, they do not eclipse for the death or the birth of anyone. فَإِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُمَا فَافْزَعُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. If you see them, then rush anxiously to the prayer. Because even though they are of the signs of Allah, and they don't really follow, the death or the birth of anyone, and they are signs and there are physical laws that explain them, yet at one time, things will change. At one time, the very routine things that we're used to will become so change so unexpectedly. And the Prophet ﷺ wanted to instill this into us. Yes, every day the sun rises from the east. Every day you're used to your routine. There will be an end to this. So be always vigilant. Be always conscious of of this, that this life will come to end. And when you see some of those signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you see any of the change, any change of the routine, when you see any change of the routine, then you have to you have to basically invoke those feelings of an anxiety inside you, even if you know that this eclipse, like nowadays, it would come at a certain time and end at a certain time. But the one who brought this change of routine may bring a much greater change of routine, or will bring a much greater change of routine. That is proven by science. It is proven by science that the world that we live in is not infinite, right? It is proven that this world would have an end, like it had a beginning. Yes.
Sheikh, you say rush to the prayer. This last eclipse that we had, it was about 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Does that mean you rush?
You pray for 3 hours, yes, but it does not mean that you must, because to begin with, we're talking about sunnah prayers, right? We're talking about recommended prayers. Yes, this is an emphasized sunnah, but it does not mean that it is an obligation. So if al-asl is not an obligation, if the asl salah is not an obligation, we cannot make basically the lengthening of the salah an obligation when the asl itself, the salah itself, is not obligatory. And sometimes some people just get a little bit stiff about these things. If you finish the salah, you will not be able to get people to stand behind you for 3 hours. And if you do, they'll be resentful. That is what the Shaykh al-Harawi talked about, dhull al-ikrah, the humility of compulsion. You feel like you're doing it because you must do it, because you will be shamed by people if you don't stand, if you just walk away. And then you're doing it under compulsion. You're really praying under compulsion here. It's the compulsion of embarrassment. So don't get the people into this dhull al-ikrah, so that you don't ruin the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you make the prayer in like 30 minutes, that would be long enough. Many people will not tolerate this even. But then you teach them, we're done with the prayer, this is time for dua and istighfar and so on. Because that is what is prescribed if you finish the prayer before the eclipse ends, to sit down and make istighfar. Yes?
Does that mean that, since the salah should take up that time, that we shouldn't try to observe these things? Like if it's happening, a lot of people like to go and observe it, but because the sunnah is to make the salah cover it, does that mean it's not recommended to try and watch it in the sky?
I will say that they have, keep in mind, when they were going to the masjid, if you lived in Medina during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you don't need to go somewhere to observe it. Everything is obvious. There is nothing that is keeping you from seeing the sky. And does it have any benefit to see it? I think it does have a benefit, because that is the faza' comes from seeing it, and so the problem is in our times, if it is a little bit awkward, because you could live in some place where you actually have to go somewhere, or you have to find a place where you could actually sight it. I think that on our way to the masjid, we can stop and, if we're taking our kids to the masjid, for instance, on our way to the masjid, we can stop and see it, and then carry on to the masjid. But you should be on your way to the masjid. So you're taking the kids to pray the eclipse prayer, and on your way to the masjid, you will cite it. Or after you finish at the masjid, you may allow them to go out and see it. I don't think it is prudent to keep the kids from watching this. I don't think it is, in the midst of all of the hype about the eclipse and all the media hype about it, and everybody is watching. I don't think that it is prudent to tell our kids do not observe it. But again, at the same time, we should give them that dose, of spirituality, and we should connect this to the instigator, the origin of this, the causer of this.
How does the Imam know when the eclipse is ending? So he's ending Salat.
Because it would be obvious, they pray in the masajid, and certainly sometimes in khusuf al-qamar, in particular lunar eclipse, it may not be known. So he may pray a lengthy prayer and then come out and still find the eclipse. But in khusuf al-shams, it will be obvious. The light, there will be less light, and then all of a sudden there'll be more light. So you know that the eclipse ended. But if he, in khusuf al-qamar or in khusuf al-shams on a gloomy day, ended the prayer prior to the ending of the khusuf, then the rest of the time they will spend they don't repeat the prayer, they'll spend in istighfar. So he says, okay, where are we? So if the sun or the moon eclipsed, people must anxiously rush to the prayer, because that is the exact statement of the Prophet, فَافْزَعُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ, rush to the prayer. Then he said, إِنْ أَحَبُّوا جَمَاعَةً وَإِنْ أَحَبُّوا أَفْرَادًا أَوْ فُرَادًا. If they desire or if they prefer to pray in congregation or individually, it would be acceptable. Whatever you prefer, to pray individually or to pray in congregation. But keep in mind that, in the madhab, they prefer the congregational prayer over the individual prayer. They're just talking about the permissibility of doing it individually or doing it in congregation. Depending on your circumstances, you have this flexibility. This applies to both kusuf and khusuf in the madhab. According to the Hanafis and Malikis, they don't prescribe it for the lunar eclipse in congregation. It's only the solar eclipse that they prescribe in congregation. But Shafi'is and Hanbalis, for them, kusuf and khusuf are the same thing, the same rulings. They're done in congregation preferably, but they may be done individually. Oh, okay, where is the mouse? Oh, you have? Huh? Okay, you changed it. Oh, thank you. And then he says, فيكبر ويقرأ الفاتحة وسورة طويلة ثم يركع ركوعا طويلا ثم يرفع فيقرأ الفاتحة وسورة طويلة دون التي قبلها ثم يركع فيطيل دون الذي قبله ثم يرفع ثم يسجد سجدتين طويلتين ثم يقوم فيفعل مثل ذلك فتكون 4 ركعات و4 سجدات. Okay, so he must make takbir and then recite al-Fatiha and a long surah. And this hadith, you have it in the book. It's hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, hadith of Ibn Abbas as well. So she described how the Prophet ﷺ prayed al-Kusuf radiallahu anha, may Allah be pleased with her. And then that is exactly what was reported in the hadith. You make takbir and then recite al-Fatiha and a long surah. And then bow, a lengthy bowing, and then rise and recite al-Fatiha and a long surah, but shorter than the one before it. And then bow and lengthen it, but make it shorter than the previous one. Then he prostrates 2 prostrations and rises, and or then he should prostrate 2 prostrations and rise, and should do as he did in the first rak'ah, and that would make for a total of 4 bowings and 4 prostrations. Must be here, 4 prostrations. So it's a different type of prayer. It's a special type of prayer that is different in the structure from your usual structure. So after you have recited the Fatiha, you made takbir, you recited the Fatiha and a long surah, you bowed, and everything is long about this prayer. The whole prayer is a longer prayer. But keep in mind that it keeps on getting shorter. So everything is getting shorter. The first of everything is longer, and then it gets shorter. That doesn't apply to the sujood in particular, but applies to the qiyam and the ruku'ah. And the second rak'ah is shorter than the first rak'ah as well. So then he bowed, and then after you rise, you will start after Sami Allahu liman hamida Rabbana lakal hamd. You will start to basically recite al-Fatiha and to recite your long surah. And then you bow, and after you rise, you will start to recite al-Fatiha. Wait a second, but keep in mind that you could do 3 of them, and you could do 4, and you could do 5. So the number 2 is what was reported by most narrations and most authentic narrations, but or the Prophet ﷺ did usually, because there could have been, some khusuf al-qamar, khusuf al-shams, khusuf al-qamar, etc. But it was reported 3, 4, and 5 were reported. Anyway, just remember the 2. Don't ever do 4, 5 here or anywhere else. Just remember the 2. So you had, after the ruku', you'll do al-Fatiha and another long surah, but shorter than the previous one, and then you'll make another ruku', that's the second ruku', and then after the second ruku', you will rise and then you prostrate. After the second ruku', you will rise and then you prostrate. And then you will do 2 prostrations, and then you will go back to the second rak'ah, and you will do in the second rak'ah as you did in your first rak'ah, except that the second rak'ah is a little shorter than the first. Disambiguation only, right? Clarification only.
The first ruku'.
Yes.
Before reading Fatiha.
You say Sami Allahu liman hamida Rabbana lakal hamd.
So you say it twice.
What? And then you carry on with the Fatiha after Rabbana lakal hamd.
After the second ruku', I rise up, say Sami Allahu liman hamida again.
Yes. Yeah.
I was at we did Salat, pursue and then we did Fatiha twice, not 4 times. And just reading the hadith, doesn't necessarily mention that Fatiha was read in the second ruku'. So is there a difference of how many Fatihas that can be read? Is it 4 Fatihas or is it 2 Fatihas?
We're talking about 4 Fatihas at least in Salat al-Kusuf, because 2 Fatihas in every rak'ah, because every rak'ah will have 2 qiyams and 2 ruku'as. Every rak'ah has 2 qiyams, you stand twice and you bow twice in every rak'ah. Yet, could you do 3, 4, 5 Fatihas? Yes, because if you keep on repeating the ruku'ah, it is permissible, but let's just forget about this. Not forget about the permissibility, but practically speaking, don't do it. Just do the 2. And so in every rak'ah there will be 2 Fatihas, 4 total Fatihas in Salat al-Kusuf.
From the hadith that's in the book, it doesn't mention recite the Fatiha the second time. It said do another long recitation.
Oh, it doesn't?
Not in the hadith itself.
Oh, but that is, I agree. But in the matn of the book it says, ثم يرفع فيقرأ الفاتحة وسورة طويلة دون التي قبلها. Then one rises and recites al-Fatiha and a surah that is long but shorter than the one before it. In the matn, in the text of the book. Yeah.
Jahri was who?
Jahri. Yes. Then he said, okay, so that is pretty much everything about Salat al-Kusuf. Yeah, except that, maybe we should mention that Salat al-Kusuf in the Hanbali madhab, they make a similar salah for az-zalzala. which is the earthquakes. If the earthquake did not basically stop, الزلزلة الدائمة المستمرة, not just the temporary like little shake. But if the earthquake did not stop, and then you make salah just like Salat al-Kusuf, because it has been reported that Abdullah ibn Abbas, there was like an earthquake in al-Basra when Abdullah ibn Abbas was there, and he prayed the Kusuf prayer, and he said, وَكَذَلِكَ يُفْعَلُ فِي الْآيَاتِ. Likewise should be done with the ayat, signs of Allah, because the Kusuf is one of the signs of Allah. Abdullah ibn Abbas made this extrapolation. Qiyas. Had it been other than Abdullah ibn Abbas, we would have been skeptical, in making that type of qiyas, extending from the kusuf to something else. But if it is Abdullah ibn Abbas and the Sahaba are around him, and then they passed it, then that is good enough for us. Keep in mind that in the other madhahib, they don't even limit this to zalzala only, but they exceed it. And it is also a report in the Hanbali madhab that you do this with the ayat in general, the signs in general, like major sort of happenings, like major floods, like violent storms, like the tsunami, for instance, or violent storms, or things of that nature. If you're in danger, you run away. Like if there is a tsunami, certainly you're running away. But if there is heavy raining and you're afraid of the consequences or certain things of that nature. Okay, then the third type of the salawat that are prayed in congregation. And what are the salawat that are prayed in congregation when they are only recommended? 3 salawat. What are they? Taraweeh, Kusuf, Istisqa. The third type is Istisqa, Salatul Istisqa, or the prayer for rain. And then Imam rahimahullah ta'ala said, إِذَا أَجْدَبَتِ الْأَرْضُ واحتبس أو واحتبس القطر خرج الناس مع الإمام متخشعين متبذلين متذللين متضرعين فيصلي بهم ركعتين كصلاة العيد ثم يخطب بهم خطبة واحدة ويكثر فيها من الاستغفار وتلاوة الآيات التي فيها الأمر به ويحول الناس أرديتهم. Okay, so إذا أجدبت الأرض واحتبس القطر, if the land became desolate and rain ceased to fall, خرج الناس مع الإمام, the people go out with the Imam, متخشعين متبذلين متذللين. Mutakhashshi'in is from khushu'. Tabazzul is from showing destituteness, showing you're not dressed up, you're dressed down. In the salah usually you go to the masjid, they're dressed up or down? Up. This salah you dress down, not up. Mutazallilin, showing humility, dhul. Mutadarra'in, tadarru' is to implode, to invoke, invoking, imploding, imploring, I'm sorry. Invoking and imploring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَيُصَلِّي بِهِمْ رَكَعَتَيْنِ كَصَلَاةِ الْعِيدِ. And he leads them in 2 rak'ats like those of Eid. ثُمَّ يَخْطُبُ بِهِمْ خُطْبَةً وَاحِدَةً. Then he gives a single khutbah. So Salat al-Istisqa, as Abdullah ibn Abbas said, is a copy of Salat al-Eid. Therefore, it is 7 takbiras in the first rak'ah, 5 takbiras in the second rak'ah, a copy of Salat al-Eid. You're praying Istisqa like you're praying Salat al-Eid. The difference between Salat al-Istisqa and Salat al-Eid is in the khutbah afterwards. Because Salat al-Eid, the khutbah, although there is some controversy, but the four madhahib, according to the four madhahib, the khutbah of Salat al-Eid is divided into two parts. It is two khutbahs, or a khutbah that is divided into two parts. The khutbah in Salat al-Istisqa is one part. It is not divided, it is not two khutbahs, it is only one khutbah in Salat al-Istisqa. What is he doing in the khutbah and in the salah also? وَيُكْثِرُ فِيهَا مِنَ الْإِسْتِغْفَارِ وَتِلَاوَةِ الْآيَاتِ الَّتِي فِيهَا الْأَمْرُ بِهِ وَيُحَوِّلُ النَّاسُ أَرْضِيَتَهُم. And he's to abundantly ask for forgiveness and recite the verses that enjoin it. People are to switch their garments around. Switch your garments around. It's controversial. If the shal, it is controversial. But this would be more like the rida of the Prophet ﷺ, or the mishlah, or the something, something that is worn that has a right and left. You get the right to the left and the left to the right. And if we accept this, then that is what we will do. If we accept that this would work as tahweel, then you do this. But it is usually more the rida, qiyas ala rida is the overgarment, which would be this. Then, so that is switching. And why is he switching to begin with? He switches before he gets into the prayer. He stands, he faces the qibla, he switches the rida, and then he prays. Why is he switching? The imam and the ma'mumeen behind him switch as well. Why is he switching? Either to show more destituteness, more humility, or out of optimism, out of hope that our conditions will change. Change of conditions, left to right, right to left, change of conditions, that the drought will change and rain will fall. So out of hope. And the Prophet ﷺ used to love al-fa'l al-hasan. كَانَ يُحِبُّ الْفَأْلَ الْحَسَنِ. He used to love optimism, good omens. The Prophet loved good omens, and he made use of them. And they have power to change your conditions. They do have this power. And let's not get distracted, but optimism, good omens, they work, they have this power, and it is so obvious in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that they work. And if you studied psychology or they do work. They have an impact on your psyche and your resolve and your condition in general. Is there anything else that we want to say here? Because I want to get to some things that are important. Yes.
Yes. The hadith of Aisha says, and I know the ulama debated over the khutbah and Salat al-Khusuf, but the hadith said it. And should we still avoid it, even though many of the ulama said not to do a khutbah, and he's just telling them, this isn't the Qur'an Ibrahim, or rather, should we do it
because it was khutbah musabbaba. He was basically pointing out to the people that no, this was not, because what is prescribed here is istighfar versus the khutbah. And the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, addressed the people after Salat al-Khusuf or Kusuf, he just wanted to tell them, no, it was not the death of Ibrahim that caused this. So that is why in the madhab there is no khutbah prescribed after Salat al-Kusuf. It is istighfar. Even though the Aisha used that expression, فَخَطَبَ النَّاسِ. She meant to address to the people, to correct the mistake that they had fallen in. Then, right to left to right. That may require you, if you have something that has akmam and stuff, to do it inside, to do it inside out. Because if I have to do this right on left and left on right, I have to wear it inside out. Then, okay, وإن خرج معهم أهل الذمة لم يمنعوا ويؤمروا أن ينفردوا عن المسلمين. If people of the covenant to go out with them, they should not be prevented and they should be ordered to separate themselves from the Muslims, to stay separate from the Muslims. And now, you know, you could basically talk about why they're ordered to stay separate from the Muslims, but we'll come to it. Anyway, in the Hanbali madhab, you take out the kids, you take out the Sibyan. It's permissible to take out the kids, but the Sibyan in particular and the Shuyukh, they say take out the Sibyan and take out the Shuyukh with you. Because the Sibyan, all of their good deeds are being counted for them. Those are the discerning kids. Discerning kids. Their good deeds are being counted for them. Their bad deeds are not being counted for them. Does it get any better? Yeah, it's just like only one side, you know, is active for you. Good deeds, you acquire all the hasanat of your good deeds. You're not acquiring until you hit puberty. So as long as you are pre-puberty, then everything will be good that you do will be counted for you. Then you do take them out. Anfasun tahira. They have basically pure anfas. Which meaning the breath of their mouth from the lack of sins. So their dua would be more likely to be accepted. You take out al-atfal, it is permissible to take out al-atfal to show your need and your darura to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it is recommended to take out the Sibyan and the Shuyukh. The Shuyukh, the older people, their dua, because of their weakness, most of your trouble comes during the age of your strength, the age of strength. That is after puberty and until you reach, old age, when you start to become less interested in the dunya, because you know that the departure is close, that it is, you have a limited time, and you do see this. One of my mashayikh gave me a prescription. Like one day he said that the shuyukh that have completely white, like gray beards, are the ones that you may trust a little bit more, because at this time they are basically, they're seeing it, they are feeling it. They are feeling it in their joints, in their muscles, in their bones. They're feeling that this is basically the down curve, and the end is near. You do want those people, and you do want to be particularly kind to those people, because they also have anfas tahira. They have less egotism. They have less, gluttony, less lust, less basically, dunya fever. They have less of all of that. And you do want their dua, and you do want to be kind to them to make dua for you. So you take them out with you to Salat al-Istisqa, and then you even they used to even take the Bahaim. They used to take their livestock, their cattle, and so on, because all of them are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of them are dependent on the arzaq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the provisions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you take them to show Allah your darura and your need. وَإِنْ خَرَجَ مَعَهُمْ أَهْلُ الذِّمَّةِ لَمْ يُمْنَعُوا. If the people of the covenant to go out with them, they should not be prevented. They're also human beings. They have the same needs, and they should be allowed to come out and pray for rain as well. But then they should be ordered to separate, and that is the fine line that, the rows of the Muslims should not be interrupted by people in their prayer, should not be interrupted by people who are not offering the same prayer, Because even though we stress the importance of kindness to humanity, compassionate treatment of all people, and we do understand that you may be a believer today, a disbeliever tomorrow. The disbeliever today may become a believer tomorrow. We do understand the flux of people's conditions and states. But now, if you are a believer and you're standing up for this prayer, then the lines, the rows should not be interrupted by people who do not have the same qasd, and they are not offering the same prayer. But they should not be allowed to go out with us to pray as well. So it is basically like he's trying to give you a formula here of compassionate treatment without perennialism. You know, it is compassionate treatment, but it is not perennialist. We believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this message to humanity so that they accept it. We believe that if you do not accept Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the final messenger, then that is disbelief. There is no compromise on this. And you know, I have it even in the book. I talked to like a perennialist one day and told them, if you disbelieve in Musa or Isa, would you be called a believer in Islam? He said, no, absolutely. You know, if you say, I don't believe in Musa and Isa, are you a believer in Islam? You're not. So I said to him, so only Muhammad you could reject? That doesn't make any sense. So according to Islam, the only prophet that you can actually reject is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. According to the perennialist thought, you know, you're not a believer if you disbelieve in Moses as a Muslim, or if you disbelieve in Isa alayhi salam. The only one that you could actually reject is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then he said, I'm just, you know, I should actually leave this. I'm going to put it in my pocket because I'm just used to reading from it. And then he said, then he goes on to the sujood. That's the last category. But there are certain prayers that are recommended in the madhab that Imam ibn Qudamah did not mention here. So what do we have that Imam ibn Qudamah did not mention? Did he mention Salat al-Duha? He did not. So Salat al-Duha is one of the recommended prayers that he did not mention. Did he mention Salat al-Tawbah? He did not. That's another one. Istikhara, a third one. Haja, a fourth one. All of these are recommended prayers. Did he mention the 2 rak'ahs after wudu? No, a fifth one. So in addition to the ones that he mentioned, in the madhab, in the Hanbali madhab, there are 5 additional prayers that have names that he did not mention. Not the mutlaq, not he did talk about, you know, wanting to pray 2 rak'ahs anytime, day or night, go ahead. These are the mutlaq prayers that you could pray at any time. But there are 5 prayers with specific designations, names in the madhab that he did not mention. Duha, Tawbah, Haja, Istikhara, and Wudu. Duha is, everybody knows, Salat al-Duha is from sunrise or 10 minutes after sunrise, 10 to 15 minutes after sunrise. It's very controversial. But let's say 15 minutes after sunrise. Let's say 15 minutes after sunrise. Salat al-Duha starts from this time because during sunrise it's time of karaha that we will talk about next week, inshallah. Then all the way until zawal, which is where the sun reaches the zenith, which is about 5 minutes before adhan al-Dhuhr. Immediately before adhan al-Dhuhr. In fact, some people say no 5 minutes. It is just immediately before adhan al-Dhuhr is the time of zawal. Zawal until the sun moves away from that point. Then you could start to offer the prayers, Salat al-Dhuhr, Sunnat al-Dhuhr al-Qabliyya, the before sunnah of al-Dhuhr. But Duha goes all the way up until right before Dhuhr, from 15 minutes after Ishraq. What about Salat al-Ishraq? What about it? Salat al-Ishraq in the Hanbali madhab is Salat al-Duha. But some scholars make like that distinction between Salat al-Ishraq and Salat al-Duha. They give the name Salat al-Ishraq to the 2 rak'ahs that you pray, if you prayed Fajr in the masjid and sat in the masjid, prayed Fajr in congregation in the masjid, sat in the masjid, making dhikr and istighfar and so on, and you could be reciting the Quran. Quran is a form of dhikr, but you sat in the masjid making dhikr and istighfar and so on, up until Ishraq, and then, after Ishraq by 15 minutes, you pray 2 rak'ahs. These 2 rak'ahs, many scholars call these 2 rak'ahs Ishraq. They are duha, but they have this specific designation because you came and sat in the masjid from Fajr prayer until after Ishraq, and you prayed them right after Ishraq, 10 to 15 minutes after Ishraq. And then the second one is Tawbah, Salat al-Tawbah, when you offer 2 rak'ahs and then you ask Allah for forgiveness. And then the third one is Salat al-Haj. And there is controversy within the Hanbali madhab, they accept the hadith of Salat al-Haj. So if you have a need, then you make those 2 rak'ahs and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your need. And then Salat al-Istikhara, if you have a need, if you and even in the Hanbali madhab, they prescribe Salat al-Istikhara fil khair, even if you are about to do something that is good, even if you are about to go to Hajj or Umrah, you still make istikhara. You embark on that which is good, you don't wait, you embark on that which is good, but you still pray istikhara. Because if Allah knows for you that it is not in your best interest to go out to Umrah, or to go for Umrah this month, or this time, then Allah will stop you. But you pray istikhara and you embark on the act that is good. So 2 rak'ahs for istikhara, 2 rak'ahs in Salat al-Wudu. You see when the Prophet ﷺ said to Bilal, "Inni asma'u qara'an alayka bayna yadayya fil Jannah," I hear the clicking of your sandals, next to me in Jannah. Okay. Can you imagine the hal that Bilal went through when he heard this? And then he asked him, "Tell me of the best, most favorable thing that you have done in Islam." And he told him that every time I pray, I make wudu, I pray 2 rak'ahs. I follow my wudu by 2 rak'ahs. So that's why they consider this to be sunnah in the madhab. So you have those 5 additional ones. You have Salat al-Duha, which is, people you call us the Ishraq in a certain case. You have Salat al-Tawbah, the prayer of repentance. Salat al-Hajj, the prayer of need. Salat al-Istikhara, prayer when you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the decision for you. And then you have Sunnat al-Wudu. All of them are 2, except for Duha, it could be up to 8. All of them are 2. Tawbah, Haja, Istikhara, Wudu, 2, 2, 2, 2. Duha could be 2 to 8. Anywhere from 2 to 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, and then Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala started to talk about sujood al-tilawa, the prostration of recital, and he said, وَهِيَ أَرْبَعَ عَشْرَةَ سَجْدَةً. وهي 14 سجدة المبني على فتح الجزئين. سجدة في الحج منها 2 وهي 14 سجدة. هذا مقطع الكلام. This is the end. في الحج منها 2. We use the punctuation in not a very nice way in Arabic. It's haphazard. It's all over the place. But it, some people are paying attention to it nowadays. وهي 14 سجدة وقف في الحج منها 2. There are 2 in Hajj, 2 that are prescribed in Hajj. ويسن السجود, and sujud is prescribed للتالي والمستمع, for the reciter and the listener. دون السامع for the one who hears them, or who hears the reciter. Okay, for the one reciting and the one listening, but not for the one merely hearing. دون السامع. ويكبر إذا سجد وإذا رفع رأسه ثم يسلم. And when he raises, okay, wait a second. And he is to make takbir when he prostrates and when he raises his head, and then he makes taslim. So sujood al-sahw, sujood al-tilawa, likewise sujood al-shukr in the Hanbali madhab. Sujood al-shukr in the Hanbali madhab is a copy of sujood al-tilawa. However, the difference is that sujood al-shukr, gratefulness, prostration of gratefulness, if you do it inside the prayer, it invalidates your prayer. So like if someone comes, someone shouts, you're praying your prayer, and someone says, Hassan Rega, which means Hassan came back, and then you say to yourself, well, great news, and then you prostrate, your prayer is done. But sujood al-shukr is a copy of sujood al-tilawa with the difference that it is not done inside the prayer. Sujood al-tilawa is done inside and outside the prayer. Shukr is only outside the prayer, but it is a copy. You say Allahu Akbar, you prostrate, you say Allahu Akbar, you sit, you make one taslima as a pillar.
Excuse me, Sheikh.
But before this, let's just go over. Yeah, yes.
So when we are in Salah and we come across one of those sajda, so we go down, we prostrate, and then we come back up to complete the Salah. Let's say I'm not finished. So I don't break at that time. I don't do this thing. I just finish my prayer. So I'm in my first rak'ah. So I go, I prostrate, when I come.
Why do you prostrate?
When I come to one of
One of the
those.
sajda places, the 14 places in the Quran that there is sajda.
Yes.
Yes.
I prostrate, then get up back, and finish my tilawa, then do the ruku, sujood, and etc. I don't break my salah.
No.
No taslim.
Huh?
I don't do taslim until I'm done with my full salah.
Oh, yeah. No, we're talking about outside of the prayer. Outside of the prayer. We're not talking about inside the prayer. Yeah. No, you're not making taslim inside the prayer, for sure. But then, the 14 places are in your book. Surah Sad, the one in Surah Sad, it is controversial. The Hanafis and Malikis do it as a recital, as a prostration of recital. The Shafi'is and Hanbalis consider it a prostration of gratefulness. سجدها داود شكرا وسجدها داود توبة ونسجدها شكرا. Dawood, because according to the Shafi'is and Hanbalis, the Prophet ﷺ, they have a hadith, they consider it to be a valid, established hadith, where, although it's controversial, very controversial in authenticity, the سجدها داود توبة ونسجدها شكرا, that Dawood made the prostration, وإن كثير من الخلطاء لا يبغي بعضهم على بعض الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وقليل منهم وظن داود أنما فتناه فاستغفر ربه وخر راكعا وأناب. فاستغفر ربه وخر راكعا وأناب. It says راكعا, but it means prostrated.
But does it matter to us when we see it, we prostrate? Does it matter?
Huh?
Does it matter? Should it matter to us?
If it's thankfulness or if it's...
Should it matter? Yeah, if you're Hanbali or Shafi'i, you should never do it inside the Salah. Because if it is a prostration of forgetfulness, it invalidates your Salah. You never do this one inside the Salah. The one in Surah Sad, if you're a Hanbali or a Shafi'i, you never do it inside the Salah. It invalidates your prayer. According to the Hanbalis and according to the Zahir and the Shafi'i madhab as well. It invalidates your prayer.
What's to be recited?
Huh?
What's to be recited while you're in prostration?
Huh?
What's to be recited while in prostration?
What? The same thing that you say in Salat in Sujood fi Sulb al-Salah, and you could add سجد وجهي للذي خلقه وشق سمعه وبصره. This dua, you could add this, but also the Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, the same thing that you say in regular sujood. He was asking, what do you say in sujood al-tilawa? In sujood al-tilawa, there is a report that the Prophet ﷺ said, سَجَدَ وَجْهِي لِلَّذِي خَلَقَهُ وَشَقَّ سَمْعَهُ وَبَصَرَهُ فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنَ الْخَالِقِينَ. My face prostrated for the one who created it, and who created sight and hearing for me, or in it. Then blessed is Allah, the best of creators. But the routine Subhana Rabbi al-A'la that you say in your regular salah, you say this, and you could add this as well, this dhikr as well, but what is prescribed routinely is prescribed also in sujood al-tilawa. Now, in sujood al-tilawa, he made a few points here. We were talked about Sad. Sad would be number 15. He did not mention Sad here. 14 is what is agreed upon. Sad would be number 15. And he did not mention Sad because in the Hanbali madhab, it is not sujood tilawa to begin with. And then he talked about making the sujood for the person who's reciting and for the listener, but not for the person who's merely hearing them. So if you're going through, the market and you hear sajda, it's controversial to begin with if you hear it through the radio, whether you prostrate, even if you're listening. But the radio is not a human being that has a qasd, that has intention. So ما فيش تالي هنا, there is no tally, there is no reciter. It's just like your iPhone. So it's controversial whether you prostrate or not. I don't think that you need to prostrate here, unless there is a true tally that has a qasd, that has a niyyah, and the tally prostrates, and then you prostrate after the tally, or the reciter prostrates, and that is when you prostrate. But not if you're merely hearing, or not if you're hearing, like a recording. Huh?
If it's live, for example, you're watching, live stream Muharram or something like that.
And the tally prostrated?
Yeah, because he has the qasd.
Well, it could be at this time that you prostrate as well. If you're watching it, video, like live video stuff, and the tally prostrated, could be, yeah. Okay, so the prostration of, for sujood al-tilawa, do you need to have wudu, and do you need to have all the requirements of salah to validate? Yes, according to the four madhahib, you need to have all the conditions of validity of salah, and you need to have wudu. Some of the scholars said no, that you don't need to have it if you're outside of the prayer and you're reciting the Quran. And you don't have wudu, you could still make that sajda, because according to them there is no proof that you need to have it, and the default is the non-liability. And according to them, it is not a salah if it is less than 1 rak'ah. There is nothing called salah that is less than 1 rak'ah except salat al-janaza, and it is a very special salah in and of itself. But it is called salat al-janaza. But otherwise, to them, any sajda, just like a singular sajda, does not qualify to be called salah. Therefore, does not it is safer to follow the position of the four madhahib. Sometimes we said before that sometimes, like fi talaq al-thalath and certain issues, the triple divorce or the composite threefold divorce or some. Yes, the qawaneen and everything, they took the position of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah versus the four madhahib because there is an obvious need. But if there is no obvious need, just stay within the four madhahib. It is safer, it is warmer inside. So stay inside. The prostration of forgetfulness poses a little bit more of an issue here, because the prostration of forgetfulness, they argue, and Shawkani, al-Tabari, Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, Ibn Hazm before. Ibn Hazm was one of the first people to argue this. Ibn Umar, before all of them. But Ibn Umar does not have a madhab of his own, But Ibn Hazm then picked up the position of Ibn Umar, which was reported in Bukhari, that he used to make that prostration of forgetfulness even without wudu. And Ibn Hazm said, well, we have a Sahabi doing it without wudu, and we don't have a proof on the requirement of wudu. Show me your proof. Ibn Hazm had the wit and the sharpness and the intellect to make it, to engage in those debates. It is not the four madhahib here, but it's not all the four madhahib, but yes, you could say the four madhahib. Keep in mind that the Hanafis and Malikis have no sujood shukr. To them, this is disliked. Shafi'is and Hanbalis are the only ones who have sujood of gratefulness. Hanafis and Malikis don't. So, but for the Shafi'is and Hanbalis, they say that you have to have wudu. Ibn Hazm and Ibn Jarir al-Tabari first, and then Ibn Hazm, and then Ibn Taymiyyah, and then al-Shawkani. They all said there is no proof that you need to have wudu, and people receive such news without any prior arrangements. Like you receive the news of. Keep in mind that if we have to require wudu, all of those like soccer players that prostrate, if them. In Egypt, they call them Muntakhab al-Sajidin, which is the team of the. Is there like an adjective from prostrate? Anyway, you make it up. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But at any rate, if you do this, then it is very unlikely that any of them will be able to prostrate if you require wudu. Unless you require wudu before they get into the game and they keep it and stuff, then it. Anyway, so I would say just, keep your wudu, go make wudu quickly. It would be safer. None of them, Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, Ibn Hazm, Ibn Taymiyyah, al-Shawkani, may Allah bestow mercy on all of them, those great mujtahid imams, may Allah bestow mercy on all of them, they would not be upset with you if you run and make wudu and prostrate. So just be safe. But if at the end of the day someone just decided to prostrate without wudu, then you should not condemn this, because there is really no solid proof on the requirement of wudu for the sujood. That will bring us to the end of this chapter. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.